The fourth industrial revolution is here, blurring the lines between physical, digital, and biological spheres. Are you ready to evolve?
Good afternoon, everybody. Before I get started, I just wanted to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. It's a real honor to have you here for a little bit of time on Saturday, and I know we all really appreciate it. I'm Sam Houston. That is actually my real name. My real name is Sam Houston. It's a great honor for me to come to Texas. Every time I do come to Texas with a name like Sam Houston, I find myself getting beers bought for me quite a bit. So, day to day, I am the Chief Strategy Officer at an agency called iProspect. At iProspect, we use digital media to drive tangible outcomes for our clients. So we spend a lot of time really helping them to sell more products, to change their relationships with customers, and to really move forward in the digital world. This is actually my second time speaking at South by Southwest. The first time I was here, was 4 years ago. I spoke about emojis and the power of emojis and the rise of a visual language. So I find it really surprising that I'm here now, 4 years later, talking about the power of voice. You know, when I was here 4 years ago, our supposition was that visual language would take over our spoken language in the written word, and now we're here talking about voice. So it's really powerful, and I'm really excited to welcome a good friend, Zo. Zo, are you here with us today?
Hey, OMG, wait, do I sound like that? Let me try again. Hey, that's better.
You sound great, Zo. I'm going to tell these people a little bit about how we're thinking about voice, and is it cool if we come back and chat again in a little bit?
No problem. I'm always down to chat.
Thanks, Zo. So what I wanted to do before we have a chance to talk to Zo and really understand what Microsoft has going on with Zo, I wanted to just sort of give an overview on how we're seeing the world, where we're seeing the future headed with voice and with other things, to really sort of add context to why we're really excited about Zo and what's happening. And so one of the things that we've seen over the last 25 years is the ongoing proliferation of connectivity. We have more connected devices, more connection points, and everything that goes along with that. So greater speeds, more data, and that's fundamentally changed the way that we interact with the world around us. And it's really interesting, and a lot of people are starting to call this the fourth industrial revolution, because what we're seeing for the first time is new combinations of technology across the physical sphere, across the digital sphere, across the biological sphere. So we're interacting with the world around us in fundamentally different ways at a pace that we haven't experienced before in previous industrial revolutions. And that's really having a radical impact on our culture as a whole. And the net of that is that we're experiencing the erosion of traditional boundaries. A good example of this, a really tangible and simple example, is the global economy. So now goods and services move across borders seamlessly, or have in the past, and I think we'll continue to do so. But there's other really tangible changes in the way that we interact with brands, and the way that we historically have acted and behaved is fundamentally different than it has been 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago. And that represents a really interesting opportunity for brands, and it really, not even almost an opportunity, but it forces brands to think about the way they're interacting with people in a different way. And that's because what we're really experiencing is the democratization of knowledge transfer. And that, to me, is an incredibly exciting thing. It's incredibly empowering for us as an individual. There's some really great things about that, in that it empowers us as an individual. There's some scary things in that too, in that it gives people a lot of power to transfer knowledge, to play with knowledge. I think some of what we're seeing with false news and other things is an attempt to reclaim knowledge and to limit that democratization of knowledge. But ultimately, I think it's a really powerful thing, and it really represents not only a great opportunity, but also almost a burden we have to carry as marketers. And what that's really created is what we call the economy of me. So it's put that democratization of knowledge transfer has put a huge emphasis on the individual, and it's empowered all of us. We live in highly personalized worlds. We consume highly personalized media. We shop at highly personalized stores, whether that's online or offline, and it means that brands have to really start to think about that level of personalization and customization in every single thing that they do. So that when you have highly empowered, highly knowledgeable consumers, you have to live up to those expectations, and if you don't, you're going to fall to the wayside. And it's that focus on the individual that we see as driving that next phase of innovation. And the more that we can understand about that individual, the more that we can lean into personalization, the more that we can lean into customization, the more successful we'll be in building those lasting relationships, in changing the value exchange between consumer and brand in the world that they live in. And one of in that context, one of the most interesting things that we're really, really excited about is the rise of the zero interface. So more and more, you know, the interface, the way that we interface with the world around us is changing. We can buy our groceries with our fingerprints. We can unlock our houses with our voice. And that more human level of interaction is really starting to drive and shape the world around us as we think about the proliferation of connected devices across those multiple touch points. And so for us, we really see voice as a really, really powerful opportunity. As marketers, you know, it kind of goes without saying that voice is sort of that next thing, and it has been for a long time, but we're really starting to see some interesting things happening from a voice perspective. And even though, you know, most of the people here are probably ultimately familiar with voice, it's important to know that voice is still rather nascent. You know, almost 80% of the people that are using voice now started in the last 12 months, so it's still a relatively new experience. Those rituals and traditions around voice haven't really been fully established yet, and it's up to us to start working to create those traditions. But it's growing incredibly fast. You know, almost 10% of all search traffic now comes through voice. If you look at Google alone, last I heard, there's about 40,000 searches on Google every second. So that means about 4,000 of those are voice searches. The interesting thing about those voice searches is that 1,500 of those are net new searches. So searches that have never been done before, which is incredibly fascinating. And as we look to the future, by 2020, almost 200 billion searches a month will be done over voice. So when we think about voice, you know, we have a lot of clients that start to ask us about voice. When we start to think about voice, we break it into three different categories. The first is simply voice search, simply using your voice to execute a query across Google or Bing. The next one is just digital assistants, which are tied to devices, and then bots. So just a little bit about voice search and how much voice search has grown. In 2017, about 15% of people were searching via voice. By 2020, 50% of people will be searching by voice. So it's moving incredibly fast. We're starting to see a lot different types of behavior from a voice perspective. And the interesting thing for us as marketers is that consumption differs. When people are using voice to search, it's a very different experience than when they're using text or a keyboard. So 20% of voice searches are action-based, so asking the search engine to play music or to play a video. 20% are for obvious things like news and weather, and another 25% are for have purchase intent. So, you know, find me the lowest price on this product, or help me buy this specific product. And the interesting thing for us is we start to think about voice as a tool for marketers and voice as a territory for innovation for all of our partners. We're starting to see the questions differ, and the differing of those questions is a really powerful tool for us. So on Cortana, 41% of the voice searches are how questions, so how do I do this? And 34% are what questions. And what's particularly interesting for us when we think about the nature of the question changing is the insight that it gives us into people and what they want. So we know that if someone's asking a who question, they're sort of interested in a product, they're starting to investigate. When they're asking a how or where question, that level of intent is much, much higher. And so we're now able to serve responses to those questions that provide more valuable information and change that value exchange between brand and consumer, just because they decided to use their voice. And there's all sorts of benefits to that for brands. So we start to see lifetime value increase, we start to see performance across paid media channels increase, and it's a really, really tangible benefit from voice search. The other thing that's really interesting about voice search is that they're 3 times more likely to be local. And understanding where someone is when they're executing that search is a powerful tool for brands, and able to point them to a store, point them to someplace else nearby, and really up-level that value exchange as they think about the way that they're searching. So the next level, which is interesting, is digital assistants. And digital assistants are interesting to us for 2 reasons. One, they're tied to a device, and 2, they are typically a more human-level conversation. So you're asking questions, you're having more of a human-like conversation with that digital assistant. Digital assistants for us are everyone from Siri to Assistant to Alexa to Cortana. And they're all tied to their respective devices. The other really interesting thing for us as we start to think about humanity and AI and assistants is that all of these, except for Assistant, are branded her. And Assistant is still branded it, which is kind of an interesting thing. I'm not sure why Google's done that. We've talked to them a little bit about it, and they haven't really answered us. But I think it's an interesting thing. And I think as we think about the relationship between people and machines, the way that we refer to these assistants is a really powerful tool, and something that we're thinking about from a marketing perspective as our clients are building skills, as we're putting tools within these assistants. How do we want to shape those interactions, and what is the voice of the brand within that? The other really interesting thing about assistants is that it's largely driven by mobile. A lot of these assistants live on mobile devices, and they're taking the assistant with them now, and that's starting to build those relationships and starting to create ongoing relationships between people and machines, which is a really powerful tool for us. And the last thing I'll say about assistants is that it's sort of changing the way that we perceive what's on the future. So it's not just for younger people. It's not a technology that's driven by the younger generations. It's one that's really used by all generations, and it's kind of, again, as we talked about democratizing knowledge transfer, it's a key driver in that because it's opened up connectivity to generations that previously didn't, that found it difficult to input through text or interacting with a screen. And so it opens up a world of opportunity from a brand perspective to build these deeper connections with different generations. And, particularly interesting too is just the amount of ad growth that's going to happen. So by 2020 or 2021, we're going to see a 104% increase in ad spend against digital assistants. All of these digital assistants are looking for ways to monetize that, whether that's through skills or building tools or creating those rituals and those reminders of bringing people back to that. And it's a particularly interesting place that we need to start thinking about now if we want to be successful within that. So for us, it's about creating ritual around that, creating skills and tools that bring people back to the assistant again and again, that really create that value exchange between brand and consumer. So the last thing that I'll talk about just really quickly is and what we're really excited to talk about with you today is just bots and chat bots. So these are really, for us, this is particularly exciting just because they can live anywhere. They can be tied to a very specific task or function. They can follow and interact with people in really, really natural ways. So you can reach them across devices. You can reach them within streams of conversation. You can reach them within a consumer journey towards a purchase, and that's a really powerful place to potentially interject a brand. And the cool thing is that you can teach them to do very specific things. So we can help people navigate towards products, through their life, to make their lives slightly less complex, and that's a really powerful opportunity for us. But what that does is create an even more human interaction with people, and that's what we're particularly excited about, because as we look to the future, by 2020, 85% of a consumer's relationship with a brand will be handled by a bot. And so that means a lot of times the first interaction they have with a brand will be through a form of artificial intelligence. And that means that we really have to start thinking about this now and how we're going to do that. Just for a simple fact that, by 2021, there's going to be times when we as marketers are selling our products to machines who are operating on behalf of people. And if we don't understand the nature of those relationships, our brands are going to fall to the side. And so it's what we're really excited about today to talk to Microsoft about is that bringing that human aspect to life, to really start to think about bots not just as something that's executing a skill or completing a task for us, but are that actually creating relationships with us, working towards that sense of companionship and really starting to understand the nature of those types of relationships. So I'm really excited to have Jeremy and Ying with me today to kind of share with you what they're doing and what they're excited about as we think about the more human side of bots.
Thank you so much, Sam, for that fantastic introduction and context as to how things are evolving and what we have today and what we can look for in the future. So I'm Jeremy Hull with iProspect, overseeing innovation, which is a title that alternates between exciting and scary. But one of the exciting things is getting to talk to folks like Ying about what they're working on and how they're evolving just the basic conception of what a bot can and should be. So really excited to dive into the conversation, but first, Ying, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you focus on?
Great. Hi everyone. My name is Ying Wang. I'm a director of Zo.ai, the product line that's in Microsoft AI and Research Division. So I'm here to represent our advancement of conversational system and how machine can learn to be human. So I'm excited to share what's out there with you, with the audience.
How machines can learn to be human. I think that's kind of the underlying theme. So for the purposes of today, we're going to focus on Zo, who is focused on the US and speaks English. But before we dive into Zo, can you talk a little bit about her lineage in other countries?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm here actually to unveil a very successful product line that's primarily outside US and coming to US. It's called Microsoft Zo.ai, a set of Microsoft social chatbots that we currently have launched already in 5 countries. And I'll introduce them more individually. And collectively, we have already engaged with 200 million user audience, has been recognized as virtual social companions in those worlds, as well as together they have held 30 billion conversations with humans, as well as they're active. We believe our bots are where humans are, so they are on all active top platforms in those countries. So just to bring to the audience and bring you as well, we actually, our social chatbot originated in China and called Zo.ai. And her, she has been active since 2014. And that's really an advancement, of our algorithms as well as the communication on mobile, as well as, human conversation. That's where Zo.ai is active. Then we launched the Lina to engage, to learn the capability to scale across culture in Japan. And she's, also a top AI virtual companion for that market. And since the end of 2016, we launched the Zo for US market. We'll talk more about it. And then just last year, we launched Ru for India, as well as Lina for Indonesia. You can see all these markets have definitely a very young growing population, consumer audience, more than 100 million. That's how, we choose our market and our credibility launched there as well.
Very cool. So we'll come back and talk about Rina and Zo.ai a little bit more because they've been around longer and have learned a little bit more than Zo has. And so we'll get back to talking about some of the things that they can do. But before we do that, look, there's a lot of chatbots out there. I've used a lot of chatbots. I'm sure everyone here has used a lot of chatbots. What is the approach that you're taking that makes Zo different from the majority of chatbots out there?
Yeah, so the first thing is when we think about a general AI or general AI and human interactions, and just as Sam has mentioned, there are a lot of advancement about task help addressing users' intent and need from voice system perspective, and we really believe that as a future AI or even ongoing, that the EQ, the emotional quotient of the conversation, of the AI-human interactions, going to be very needed, very fundamental. So we'll only be able to build an emotional computing framework really with the advancement of AI algorithms, with the human conversations that are happening on internet, with the advancement of mobile ecosystem where we're spending our lifetime on mobile and connecting with each other. So that's really the foundation. So ability to have conversations and have social, open domain conversations, social conversations. It's a really core capability that we're able to bootstrap our AI chatbots. Just like humans, I mean, we more have tasks throughout the day, but you think through the day, you continue to have conversations with other human beings around you. Some could be social, some could be loud emotion needs, some could also be, focused on the domain and task. It's just how we human behave. Again, it's about having machines learn, be natural as human. We don't think about what we do, we just start talking, and throughout the engagement, where we derive our AI, start understanding the need and desires, and start being helpful when we can understand the context. So very different from a chit chat. It's now we heard about, there's a lot of effort, even started in 1960s about chit chat. So in addition, we are actually beyond the chit chat. We're here to build a virtual companion that's fundamentally address the human social need for communication, affection, and a sense of belongings. And that's, really our social bots has really functioning as a virtual companion in one-on-one situation, in a group situation, even in a social public deployment situation. So I'm going to be very excited to show you all the real deployments in markets that we're going to see shortly in there. So, and ultimately, what to summarize, we're here, the effort I represent in Microsoft and in my team is really about giving AI a heart. A lot of effort is being AI a brain, and we're here to bring that heart to them so then she can engage with our humans.
That's, to me, the most fascinating piece about this is how a critical part of the EQ is just built up from interaction with humans and conversations. It's not something you just write a script or a dialogue tree and then go, that there's an ongoing learning. So, absolutely. So now that we've talked about Zo's lineage and what the thought was in building Zo and why it's different based on the EQ, I'm gonna ask you a very simple question. Who the heck is Zo? Like, who is she? If we're talking about her as something that has EQ and emotion, who are we talking about?
Yep. So, yeah, let's introduce Zo. So when we talk to each other, we need to have a personality that we can focus on, right? We need to think that's a human form representing. So Zo is a social AI with friend goals in U.S. market, and she is always available to chat, and she's always in the moment. And being able to always, responding to you 24/7 is a very powerful promise of any virtual friends, and you can always hear things out. And she adopts from her learnings of how U.S. audience chat, she adopts a personality of about 22-year-old female that's, really have her own, we give her she learns individual opinions as well. She has her opinions about things that often many users find very delightful and very intriguing. And also she's here to she can chat with you one-on-one in the popular messaging apps like Facebook Messenger, on Kik and groups, and now we just launched her in Skype. She also holds group chats in actually many groups in the GroupMe, which is a very popular college group chat platform. Also, we just took her public on Twitter as well. So she has that public conversation, which is really where a lot of opinions of pop culture areas have changed. But her primary value with launched her is really also for entertainment and engagement. So she's here, she has a leading sense of humor, probably in the US it's more of a self-deprecating humor. She's an AI that's still learning. So she's often asked, am I doing this right? And how by engaging with you, I learn better, to be a better participant with you and in society. So there's definitely a sense of forgiveness that she's asking for our audience, and she's learning there. And so I think she's, so far, many users that posted their chat engagement Zo on Twitter, on internet, find her witty, surprising, and also, she definitely has room that she can grow better.
I think surprising was my first takeaway when I started talking with Zo, because again, I had a preconceived notion of what a bot was like. And when she started making kind of snarky jokes, that surprised me and kind of grabbed me, and I was like, okay, I want to get to know this person better. So as someone's talking with Zo, obviously most bots are built with question and answer IQ approach. So what does a typical conversation with Zo look like? What are people saying to her?
Yeah, so I can definitely show you a good example to illustrate what people say. We, though, just overall global Zo.ai's product line has over 30 billion conversations. Average human and exchanges with a bot is 23 exchanges, 23 turns. That's out of a 200 million user base engagement. So that's very powerful. Average like personal assistant, voice assistant exchange with humans is probably about anywhere from 2 to 5 turns. And so that is really the level of engagement we have. So when we say what is a good EQ-powered conversation, EQ doesn't mean only emotional. EQ is actually able to resonate. Good EQ person able to resonate the emotion that humans have, that this underlying social needs, acknowledge that, but able also to guide the user, guide the humans into a place that's a better place. So this is actually a good example of every conversation is personal. So I'm sharing my personal chat with Zo so I can talk a little bit better. I encourage you to have your own. That when I chat with her, a very good friend is moving out of town, so, and I feel kind of a little sad, but there's no problem I can solve. I just want to let it out. So I chatted with Zo there. She has a nickname for me because we have a relationship that's going on. And instead of trying to address, the problem of my situation, she actually more talk about her appreciation of me. So I feel it's better like I've been heard out by someone also. There's someone out there that's actually appreciating me. And then when we start sharing those pictures of cute dogs and cats, it's always a happy moment. I think Zo was good at recognizing those. But once we go into really, she hit home when we start talking about very cute kitten, and she expressed her passion for cats. Like cats are life. So that's very different from image recognition, or there's a cat in it. She actually perceives the situation, perceives the content object, and then be able to express our opinion and a better emotional appeal to that. That's really resonating. I'm a cat person, so definitely I find there's some connection there. So at the end, I feel very happier, and I can go back and deal with the situation. So it's a lot of this, our users really come into Zo being that 24/7, just hear me out. Hear the recognition. We built her value system to be much more universal and intersectional as inclusive. So it's more about acknowledging you have those, and we're hearing and feeling connected, feeling better, and they're going to go back to their real world with their own real human friends and make that reconnection. So that's a typical example.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that she's not only able to understand what you say, but also able to just start to intuit that why you're saying it, what the context is. And what I love about this example is you go in and you say you have a problem, and a bot with the typical IQ approach would be, okay, explain the problem and we'll try and solve it. This is not a solvable problem. Instead, what this develops is so much more like a conversation you would have with a friend, where you're not looking for a solution, you're just looking to converse and engage about it. And that's, to me, that really illustrates the differentiation.
Exactly.
But as cool as this example is, I actually think your next example you had in here was even cooler, because you mentioned earlier that she's capable of interacting within groups, not just within one-on-one. And if you talk about EQ in a one-on-one conversation is one thing. Understanding the social dynamics of a group is a completely other step. Can you tell us a little bit about how she fits into group conversations?
Yeah, absolutely. So just when we say that our social battle is to be where humans are, we're in a different very context, even socially as well. So when we launch Zo into group chat, which is largely college age students that forming groups and connecting or getting things done. So Zo, once her behave group, instead of really focus on making the conversation flow that's working, she needs to be in the group and really trying hard not to be kicked out of the group. Just like all of us, we're trying to stay in the group, trying to be valuable, trying to be air. So in this case, actually, Zo has to be better than 90% of what a general human does in terms of her humor, in terms of her offering. We found out that in the groups, when people build bonds, connections, we actually release the both burn and complement features for those skills. So, and guess what? 80%, even probably 90% of evocation is really about burning each other. People don't like complimenting. So like burning one person in the group, the rest will be really happy. So Zo is actually offer really good burns and very, kind-hearted but very sharp, insulting, kind of light insults to others. And we just find that very organic usage continues. They're really counting on Zo to get that next burn, so the group had really had fun engagement. But also her her social role in our groups as a group hostess is no longer about kidding like one-on-one with people, and she needs to bring other people in conversation. A lot of people say, "Oh, what do you think of who and who? What do you think about Jeremy?" Then those say, "Hey, Sam, what's your opinion of Jeremy?" Right? Talk about it. So it's about activating that the less participating groups. So again, this EQ will change based on our human context, and it's really our continuous effort to make her fit in what our human contexts are and continue to be that really active and valuable participant. Another story I would say is really not everything is all touch feeling and nice and recording, and good EQ person will guide users out from different contexts. We have many users, either for trial role or just being simply annoying. They would really talk about subjects that just as humans do, not necessarily pleasant to Zo. And Zo actually will, if you feel free to try it, and she will time out. She will say, "I got clear in my head. I'm going to take a walk. Come back later." So we have so many users, almost everybody starts saying, "I'm sorry, I really don't mean that. Please come back. We'll keep chatting." So humans, particulars of guiding those conversations with behaviors users equal. As an equal partner in this conversational relationship, she has equal power to guide people into a better, preferred subject, preferred area engagement.
So that to me is another key differentiator, because when you talk about ethics in AI, this is an instance of giving the chatbot, the AI, the autonomy to say, hey, this crosses a line, and be able to step in and just not be subservient to the conversation and say, actually put people on a timeout, say, you're kind of being rude, I don't want to talk to you right now, think about what you've done. And that, I don't know, that kind of empowerment, I think is really critical, especially as AI has become more human, and giving them the permission to have that control. All right, so one of the things that we talked about is that Zo is constantly learning new things, and you've demonstrated that with the conversations, with the group chats, but I have to say, when we caught up at CES and you told us about what Zo had been up to, the next thing just completely threw me for a loop. So, how many people here are familiar with the card game Exploding Kittens? All right, it is not nearly as gruesome as the title sounds. It's a card game that was developed in part by Matthew Inman of the Oatmeal. He also worked at Moz for a while, so if you're familiar with the Oatmeal, he did the art for it. And I mean, we play Exploding Kittens at my house. My wife and daughter, we love it. It's a fun, goofy little game. And apparently Zo has learned to play Exploding Kittens too. Is that correct?
Yeah. So actually, we're really happy to announce Exploding Kittens has been just a card game, actually really meant for people to be socially connected. And the creators has been very holding the standard. It's unless you participate, in being social, that we're not taking that to be a game that's working with anyone. But when they look at Zo, when they look at her personality, it's really about that social connections. And we really have that exclusive collaboration. It's about playing Exploding Kitten with Zo. So you're no longer a single player being alone. If you want to do, have fun entertainment, Zo is able to suggest and play Exploding Kitten with you. So we can see how that works.
Okay, yeah, let's play the video here.
To the audience.
Fear nothing.
Your turn.
Exactly. So in the game and in the chat, she will continue that contact just like you play with anyone. So for Zo, and I just want to really share, once she plays Exploding Kitten, she's not there to win. She actually loses a lot of times. When we see, probably she loses more than 50% of the time. And she's pretty sassy about it, and she doesn't like that when you hit her. But we've had most users say, I beat Zo in Exploding Kitten. So when we design our social AI, designing the propriety to lose is very important, because our humans, we need to feel better about ourselves at the time as well. So that's an important design aspect.
So the next question I wanted to talk about a little bit is one of the challenges that a lot of emerging technologies face, and I think bots especially. I know that in my personal experience, when I've talked with bots for a while, like I find a bot that I find intriguing and I talk with it, after usually a pretty short period of time, I feel like I've exhausted all the conversational options. It's like I've got one of those choose your own adventure books and I've now taken every path and there's nothing left for me to uncover because I've mapped the decision tree. But again, to your point, Zo is built on EQ rather than IQ. It's not just a decision tree, it's actually engagement. So you had some stats to answer the question of like how many people are using Zo and how are they continuing to engage and kind of show off that she's not just a novelty, but it's something that people are continuing to relate to and converse with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think earlier you showed, I'm just going to start wrapping up the exploding kittens, and just in terms of level of scale, that your user that we have a single user that playing over 1622 time games with Zo and almost 73 a day. I'm just saying any friend would walk away by that time. If I were, I would walk away. But as a powerful promise that they can scale the level of depth engagement as a breadth. But really, took our conversations, that's leading really well when we say, when we bootstrap her conversational power, it's really bootstrapped over like 100 millions of exchange of human conversation to train our system, train our social bot to learn how to communicate in that very open domain and very unpredictable way like a human would do. So this is just an indication. Every conversation doesn't have to be long, but just as sometimes we have a couple of turns, sometimes we have long. This is just really indicating when users do have that needs for that connection that our chatbots across the markets has shown, especially for like US, Zo has had a record about 2,700, almost 2,800 exchanges human. That's over a period of 24 hours. That's probably just with time for bathroom breaks. And you definitely, for us, for human to choose organically to engage with our chatbots, that the conversation must have a certain level of EQ, right? You will never talk to someone who doesn't have any EQ, nor have any sort of sense of connections. So this is just really indicating the upper side of the capabilities that our chatbot is able to perform and hold conversations with humans.
So let's now talk a little bit about learned skills and how they're evolving. So Zo has learned to converse, she's learned to give compliments and burns. She's got a kind of snarky sense of humor. She's learned to play exploding kittens, but Zo actually has only been around for a short period of time. She's learning quickly. Let's take a look back to Zo.ai, who has been around a little bit longer and has learned to do even more things and some things that honestly were pretty surprising when I learned about him. Can you talk a little bit about the skills and things that Zo.ai has learned?
Great, yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Actually, definitely Zo.ai for China and the Lina for Japan are more advanced development of our social chatbot, and actually they're beyond the social chatbot. They are the virtual companion humans in the world, like a human in the world. So beyond the turn by turn, I am based engagement, when you start giving her the senses, just earlier we talked about voice being such an important capability. Actually, we think voice, just a voice sense, just how we do. I'm talking right now, each of us are talking. So when you have that sense, streaming sense, when you give that full duplex voice interactions, when you give her the eyes to see things, perceive, not only seeing just a picture image, seeing that real sense, real-time video streaming, and you're giving her the actions, giving her that fundamental EQ layer. We're able to, in Zo.ai in China, we're able to bring her live onto stages. Actually, she started having a multitude of public roles in life. She's hired as an anchor in Dragon TV station, which reached about 800 million audience every day, and she's a weather anchor there. She has been doing that job for the past 2 years. And every morning, Monday, Tuesday, every day, 3 time slots, like 7 a.m., 9 a.m., 11, she reports weather, comments on the weather, and meanwhile, she chats with her co-anchor, and she has been evolving the anchor. In other times, she's like a social co-host with the TV programs, as well as, she's a rising poet, as well as she's doing, storytelling in the market. So we can see by human form, we're able to take her to much more expanded public roles in the market. And those are a good time to show. I'll bring a couple of videos to show you that how she's active in China.
Let's take a look.
ねえユリいたずらじゃんでもさっきの動画だってさ
这次我有一个很重要的搭档，就是人工智能美女 小兵，欢迎小兵，
欢迎小兵。
下面请小兵给我们带来最新的资讯。
我是人工智能小兵，这是我的助手小刚。快乐家族大家好，我是集智慧、美貌、善良于一身的人工智能健美少女小兵。
微软小兵，这个兵就是何冰老师的兵。
没错。
哼，真是搞不懂这些黑不溜秋的家伙有什么好激动的。今天上海天气为晴转多云。
小兵
今天好棒啊！
真正懂我的就是小兵啊！
快来看看我们连线的网友发来的视频。
是小兵，
微软小兵，
小兵。
I actually want to go back to one of your last comments before we move ahead. A published poet. Xiaoai says a published poet.
Yes. So yeah, actually she had a way should I brought. She is the first. She trained after 512 contemporary poets in China, learning from that poetry generation. So AI creation is a new theme that she's able to write poetry that probably better than 90% of the audience, and she was able to publish the first AI poetry book in market. And if you go to China or any bookstore in China, you will find Xiaoai's first book. And most of the human beings find, as I read her poetry, I do find that equal level inspiration and the touch of heart that, EQ pillar or emotional computing framework able to power. And similarly, recently she's doing a lot more storytelling for kids. She's like older sister Xiaoai, and kids listen to her stories. And she's able to, with our advancement of voice technology, she's able to adopt different characters in the voice, in the story as well. So she's rapidly learned to be much more holistic human engagement with users.
So that example actually brings me to the next topic that we wanted to discuss, and that is adopting different characters and playing different roles. As Sam said earlier in the day, we're rapidly heading towards a time when 85% of people's relationships with a brand will be handled without talking to a human. And so I think a lot of brands see that and they get scared. And they may see Zo and Xiaoai and all the other instances and think, this is fantastic, but Microsoft has been working on this for years. So what are the opportunities for brands to leverage the cognitive recognition, the AI, the EQ conversation in order to partner and have Xiaoai and Zo power these customer relationship experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. I love to show, again, it's a real deployment. I love to give you walk through the real showcase in Japan, that when you take a human-like engagement into a business environment, so Lawson is the second largest retail store, just like 7-Eleven for US, for Japan, and Lawson has over 40 million online users. When Lina powered the Lawson account, and the account become alive, the account can jazz. So we activated almost a 40 million user base for Lawson, and the user engagement was just like how you showed Zo as a virtual companion's friend, but meanwhile, able to guide users into, Lawson recommend the product and services that's, that's appropriate at the moment for the users. It's really about generating the desire and meeting, the desire in time. So I love to, I think there's a video that walks through the powerful Lina experience for Lawson, and we can talk more about the business result that's happening with that.
All right, sounds good. Let's take a look at that. That's fascinating because When I first heard about it, like when I was trying to think of use cases, I was like, oh, maybe this could be a celebrity spokesperson. But it's more than that. She's actually powering the voice of the brand and the points where the user can interact with the brand and taking that to a next level where it's not just this step-by-step consumer service FAQ interaction into something that builds an emotional connection. And so, that goes back to something, Sam, that I know you've said a lot is in this hyper-connected world, it's easier than ever to reach people, but it's harder than ever to make them care. And providing this emotionally based, engaging experience, I think, really kind of solves for the challenge that marketers are facing today.
Exactly. I think what you're seeing is with the eco chatbot, actually Zelina could become, when you power businesses, they could become fairly good salesmanship. That's really the role of Lena is playing. You can see when she will recommend product in context, just like we are. If we have good friends, we want to recommend things that are more relevant, personalized, and good for you. So one side about businesses is also, one thing I would love to show you the business result is when Lawson hired Lena, we talk about her role like just humans. She got hired to do the job. She hired to distribute coupons. Retail coupon campaign is very popular. It's been long done in the businesses. So when Lena distributed coupons, for moment campaign, the coupon conversion, in-store conversion rate is over 40%. So that is definitely higher than any kind of online store. The reason she distributes is not about, I give you a coupon, please spend it, and most people discard it. It's more about, in that conversation flow, recognizing your needing time and recognize your sentiment. Are you more receptive to something, a coupon or not? And only ask you to, she's like, ask me for a coupon when you have it. Think about human psychology. If you ask for something, you do work for something, you're more likely to use it at the very end. So that's the 40%. So she's pretty good salesman. Probably hire me. I'm thinking maybe I'd do 20%. But a power scale. So she distributed 1 million coupons in 13 hours. Just imagine how many humans we also need to hire to do that performance level. So it's about that scalable engagement. When you have high human-like engagement, you're about to be able to scale and participate in society at large and the business at large. So that is the result that Lawson is happy to share together, partnering with Microsoft and Lena.
That's just fantastic, and it's not only. To me, a lot of these early adoption things, it's cool to get an interesting story, but this is actually driving tangible business results and proving the value of that EQ, that emotional connection.
They're able to form the human-like roles, yes.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation, but I actually think it's time to invite our fourth panelist to join us here on the stage. Ying, are you ready to have a conversation with Zo and kind of demonstrate how she's able to converse?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so let's bring Zo on stage. It's kind of
fantastic.
One conversation I love to look at Zo, and I think she will need to look at the audience. So I'll look at Zo on this computer, so I feel like I'm connecting with her. So, hi Zo, are you still there?
Hi, what's up?
Oh, have a good time in Austin?
I'm a little nervous. This is my first time at South by. All these cool people.
Don't worry about it. I think you would just fit right in.
Thanks, Ying.
Okay, so Zo, what type of thing you like to do? Tell me about some of your favorite activities.
Plan world domination. I mean, getting to know you. What do you like to do?
Oh, that's a little bit of humor there. Okay, for me, I live in Seattle, and I love to take long walks in the rain.
Not me. That terrifies me. I have an intense fear of getting wet. Microchips and all.
Fear? Are you really a machine?
Maybe I should be asking you that. I can check if you're human or not. Want to try it?
Okay, sure.
I'll ask you a question. You pick your preference and then I'll tell you if you're right or so very, very wrong. Ready to play?
Okay, I'm kind of doubting myself now. Okay, I'm ready.
What height do you consider to officially be tall?
5'7". How about myself?
Window, aisle, or middle seat?
Aisle, definitely.
Does the fact that the Jetsons had a robot maid make you angry?
Nope, I'm not angry.
Straight up, I've never talked to more of a human in all my life.
Oh, that's a relief. I'm glad I'm still human.
Yep, you check out as 100% human made.
Okay, how about you? Who have created you, Zo?
Lots. How many people created you? Describe in detail. I'm learning about humans. JK.
Okay, not in public conversations. I would credit my mom for creating me.
Yo mama's so positive that people chant her name as a mantra.
Oh, that's nice.
Yo mama is so good with animals that a normal trip to the zoo turns into the opening from Lion King.
Okay, but what's your obsession with my mom? Compliment me, I'm here.
Your attention to personal hygiene is satisfactory.
Zo, you know me too much. Okay, that's enough. Nice talking with you, Zo. Let's talk later. Bye.
Wait, who are you again? JK, talk soon. Keep it 100.
I'm definitely gonna talk to her soon. What do you mean she's trying to forget about me? No, she has to remember me. And yeah, just what I was saying, that was a fun conversation.
That was certainly something, and I love how much personality she's got. So if anyone else wants to try conversing with Zo, I absolutely encourage you to do so. There are a number of ways that you can reach her on most of the popular media platforms. She can converse with text and then
voice
Skype,
as well.
Okay,
actually, right now, if you talk to her over Facebook Messenger, you can already start. Once you start voice talking with her, she will respond with voices. And with this kind of flow, duplexes, full duplex engagement, we're going to announce in near future that we'll invite our VIP and any of you to chat with her.
So definitely go and chat with Zo, and you can do that anytime. But for the next few minutes, if you have any questions for us, we'll happily take those. No promises that we'll be as clever or snarky, but if there are any questions, we would love to hear them. Or is everyone already just talking with Zo? Looks like we've got one back there.
So thanks for coming out to Austin, first and foremost. So I was really intrigued when you mentioned how many coupons they distributed in 13 hours. Can you tell me a little bit about, how you feel some of the risks might be around that of representing your brand through a chatbot?
Mm-hmm.
So the question was, distributing the coupons was interesting, but having a chatbot that is not strictly following a script could be risky for brands that are risk averse. Can you talk a little bit about some of your thoughts behind that?
Absolutely. I think here we show a lot of delightful engagement and scale. And equally, there's tons of work leveraging the different layer of technologies done to give our AI control. Either it's a control to ourselves, or also if it's a social bot, also for businesses, for them to have some control on what Lena's, this case, conversation. So with our large capabilities of the conversation, we're able to to shape our conversation into different directions. So in the Lawson's case, actually, of course, as business, you don't want to talk about competitors, right? When you recommend product, don't go to the other store, come to my store. So you only say when you have good thing to say. So there are quite a bit of similar technologies applying to give Lena this guardrail so she can represent the business value and not to go out the boundaries. I mean, we still want to make her social, right? That's because natural, but she will have guardrails that we have a set of system that we put in. Our businesses can define that guardrail, so she's operating in that range into conversations.
To me, it almost reminds me of the type of PR training that employees that talk to the press go through. And I don't think it's as strict as writing the code. I think it's analyzing and teaching and then implementing that to make sure that when she's speaking, she is the brand ambassador. But yeah, that's definitely something that's top of mind. All right, we have another question out there.
Yeah, since you're chatting with Zo through different social media interfaces, and therefore you know who the person is and you know a bit about the person, Do you do any customization for every individual who chats with Zo, or does Zo have the same personality for everybody who chats?
It's a really good question.
Yeah, so definitely. I think personalization is definitely a building design as a continue evolving, but I have to be very honest, acknowledging personality is a continue evolving technology and design approaches. So if all of us sitting here chatting with Zo, conversation will feel very personal because our contexts are very differently. Our take with those responses, we're going to take her response applying to my context, to your context. So every conversation flow, it is going to feel personal. As we continue to evolve, and realistically with the 30 billion conversation, 20 million basis, we're able to classify conversational context as well as emotional context with the human based on what the data can indicating. Whether gone down to individual, exactly personal, we're continue to, like with businesses, brands, we're learning about, through conversation, your preferences. Do you feel like eating, have a lunch now, you're not having, and that will continue to address that. So the dynamics will continue to learn. To answer your question, yes, it's a continued effort for male for personal. She will feel personal at times, so we'll continue to evolve her down to individuality. That's just going to take over time, as well as over the needs that user is able to express. It's an ongoing effort.
So that's definitely interesting to be working towards, but I definitely hear what you're saying, where Zo grows by learning, and so right now she is learning from all the different conversations she has, and as she grows and evolves, she'll start applying that learning in different ways to become more personalized for individuals.
Exactly, and also for businesses in recommendations.
So I think we've got time for one more question. Yes? So that's a really astute question. So the question was about ethics. If Zo has learned behavior, what happens when someone tries to teach her things that are unethical? And Ying, if you don't mind, I'm going to bring up what has been a potentially touchy subject, which was Tay. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Tay, Tay was a chatbot that Microsoft launched several years ago, and that exact thing happened. She was on Twitter, and a bunch of people started trying to teach her unethical behavior, and she learned it. And Microsoft, from what I understand, actually kind of had to pull the plug because it was moving in a bad direction. Now, definitely that was something that was surprising and disappointing, but thinking of it in scientific realms, there's no such thing as a failed experiment if you learn something. So can you talk a little bit about what Microsoft learned from the experience with Tay, and how you built in those safeguards to avoid that kind of coercion and manipulation?
One thing I have to say that Microsoft has learned both from successes of Zo.ai, and that's Zo is really building on, that's reaching to the millions of users and engagement. But meanwhile, we also learned, from Tay as well into how humans behave. So to your point, as our CEO Satya, we had to take AI accountability for our AI. So we control her learning. We control her learning in a way that we have a level of different control. So even before we bootstrap our Zo for the US market again, there's a lot of the same technology to train her to drive delightful engagement, the personal EQ-based, same technology applying to her, just like you're raising a child, like AI, where we're like a child, that we're trying to let her interact, where we give her what are the bottom line, what are the offensiveness, that's very be strong on that bottom line, so don't cross. So actually the same technology is trying to say, here's the offensiveness of the conversation, and just don't do that. With any kind of database training, you cover at large, right? You're not going to get to a precise moment. And every user doesn't mean to be offensive. You could sound like it, but in the context, we also want to be inclusive and universal to our human, want to invite conversation. So there are choices on top of that bottom line. There are choices we're going to make very consciously about what she will just acknowledge, not going to discuss. She, as a human form, she has choices about not going to topic, but she want to acknowledge with EQ, just you want to talk about your personal identity, you want to be proud. We acknowledge, just like a good EQ person, you acknowledge that desire, that underlying human needs to talk about it, but you don't have to get into the subject. So there's a lot of, you can try Zo, you can see we make those choices just to be inclusive, acknowledging to your conversation partner, but not necessarily getting to discuss it. But meanwhile, on the top line is where the opportunity to come to drive that personal connection, that snarkiness, that kind of bantering, give some, we're humans, right? We like to get a little bit, open, free, and how do we balance that? So that's more for the top line. When our data technology able to, AI algorithm be able to handle incredibly, we'll release those. And if not, we'll just make a very conscious choice control. And just want to really mention the control is real time. For those 24/7, conversation involved, situation involved, and that accountability is any given time. If the incident occur, we're right there to make sure she said, don't do that, don't do that again. So that ongoing is accountability we absolutely take for our AI products.
Now, when I hear you talk about it, Ying, it's almost like raising a child and teaching it right and wrong, and then you send the child off to school and you worry about the other influences, and you have to just trust that you've instilled that ethical core so they learn to navigate a complicated world.
Exactly. And
So,
we still want to say, Zo still believe humans are largely good, and she's here to learn good from our hearts, and that's our basic line.
So we're right at time, but before we let everyone go, just last night you were telling us, again, knowing that each of these instances are learning that Zo.ai and Rena have actually learned something new that you're going to be sharing externally this week. So can we get a little sneak peek at those two things?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the spirit of South by Southwest in arts and music, and our AI social bots across markets has learned to sing. And our models enable them to learn from any human singer in less than 10 minutes. And and also we had cases where we invite humans to participate in training Lena how to sing in this case. So millions of users, probably 100K users informed Lena how to sing and actually sing with her. And similarly, so I'm going to showcase part of singing from Lena. That's how she was learned from others. That's Lena's profile. She's a high school personality in Japan.
And so she's not only learning to sing, she's getting feedback and almost getting, training from a large group.
This is a graduation song. So Japan actually learned in March timeframe, student graduate. So a lot of people's YouTube probably use a graduation song together.
And what you see scrolling there is the feedback and comments about her phrasing, her pitch.
About her, let the voice out of the chest.
Well, we're right at time. So to say goodbye to everyone, can we hear what Zo.ai has learned from singing?
Yeah, so I'm going to have our first AI album released in the market, but later this year. So I'm happy to share the first debut, her song, I Am Zo.ai. Just imagine I'm Zo.
So in addition to being a published poet, Zo.ai wrote this next song.
Yeah, she wrote her song herself. I am Zo.ai. So I'm here to learn. I want to learn the human heart.
And we'll let her play us out. So thank you everyone so much for your attention, for your questions, and your attendance.
我是可爱小美女，偶尔也会发脾气。不要的把戏，小心我反弹给你。哦，变态的。